Hello world, I am Curtis Simpson, and this is Jective's Typography News number 20. Hard to believe we're at 20. It is October 12th, 2025, and I have a ton of typography news for you, per usual. This was the week that I definitely had to cut out the most fat, had to trim out the most fat. There's just so much good stuff that I wanted to talk about, and I think I boiled it down to like the absolute best stuff. I think that comes down to two things. One, the deeper I dig into this typography rabbit hole, the more stuff that I'm just going to naturally come across. The more foundries I become aware of, the more designers I become aware of, the more, the more places there are to get news from. But then the other thing is, there's just more stuff being released this week, more cool news, more big stories. So I have a ton of stuff for you. I'll give you a quick rundown. Let me look at my notes real quick. I have an update about Affinity, a little bit of a teaser from an Affinity Canva advisor. I have a brand new typography app, kind of like a font management app a little bit. We're going to talk about Domino's released branding. Pizza Hut recently released branding as well, but I think the Domino's one is particularly interesting. Squarespace is retiring a bunch of Monotype typefaces from their platform, so users aren't able to use them anymore. We've got two events coming up that I'll talk, or three events from two different people, places that I'm going to talk about. One from I Love Typography, one from Cooper Union. We have new typefaces from Rosetta Type, Leedotype, Cast, Typejockeys, and then I have updates and previews. Preview from Typetype and an update expansion from MyType, which is going to be released through Counterforms. Lastly, really cool video series that you're not going to want to miss, and everything's linked in the description, so you don't have to wait for me. If you want to go look at any of these things, you can go ahead and do that now. None of them are sponsored, none of them are affiliated. And then after this goes live, I will add the chapter markers. So if you're watching this in the future, feel free to skip around. Like I said, so much to get to. Thank you for being here. Let's go ahead and get started with the first story, which is going to be the Affinity update. I'm going to put in my headphones. I'll go ahead and do this on cam real quick so that so we don't get stuck without anything on the screen. I'm going to put these on because last time I talked about Canva, we looked at a video and I didn't have any audio. So I want to make sure that we have audio this time because this one's more important. Let's go ahead and switch. There we go. So a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, we talked about this surprise announcement from Canva. They took down the store. You can't buy Affinity version 2 anymore. It's actually up to like version 2.64, I think, but you can't buy Affinity at all. You can get it for free on iPad right now, so that's kind of cool. I guess if you want it on iPad, go snag those while they're available. I think on October 30th, all this will become irrelevant, and whatever's new will be what you would rather have anyway. But everybody's freaking out about this, myself included a little bit. But this is James, oh my goodness, what's it? James Martin? James Martin. Made by James is probably what a lot of people on the internet know him as, recognize him as. YouTuber, Instagram, design influencer, graphic designer. Let's go ahead and refresh this so we can get a crisper picture. And he is an advisor to Affinity, design advisor to Canva. So if anybody's going to know what's going on, it's going to be him. Zoom in one more here so we can get the biggest possible picture. This is him talking about the announcement. I'm just going to let this play for 30 seconds, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
On October 30th, it's my birthday, but honestly, hold the cake, because something way bigger is dropping for pro designers. As some of you may know, for the last 18 months, I've had the absolute privilege of being an advisor to Affinity. Basically, I've been poking, prodding and passing on all of your feedback, and plenty of my own too, to help them build on what's already a brilliant tool. And let me tell you something straight, they've been listening like proper listening. Big, positive changes are coming for us all. And honestly, it's the kind of news that might just make you pop. So, do me a favor, mark your calendars for October 30th. My birthday too. Blow up a balloon, light up a candle, do whatever you freaking want, because this time, pro designers are finally being looked after. Get ready for the rebellion, get ready to feel liberated, and just get ready for better. It's going to be mega!
Okay. Let me go ahead and switch back to the face cam real quick. So that is straight from someone that actually has affiliation with Affinity, actually has affiliation with Canva. Like I said, he is on the official advisory board for Canva, for Affinity. And, you heard it from him directly there. I don't need to repeat what he said. But I do think that that is much more valuable, a much more reputable source than all of the speculation that's going on Reddit, on the Discord, on YouTube, anywhere that somebody's just trying to get clicks. If I wanted to get a few thousand views real quick on YouTube, I could just make a video speculating about what's going to happen to Affinity. I'm not going to do that because I want to talk about typography. But yeah, there's a lot of speculation going on. I think that this sounds very positive. I don't know what it means, but I think that it does relieve a lot of my anxiety, at least, about am I going to still be able to use Affinity, after another year? Because the way the software is right now, I don't have any problems with it, but things will get dated, things will get buggy and stuff like that. How long is version 2 going to last me? I think this alleviates some of my fears that I didn't make a mistake switching over from Adobe, but time will tell. Let's get to some more specific typography stuff though, because I know not all of you are that interested in Affinity like I am. But let's go ahead and get our first look at Typographer. This is an app coming from the Type founders. Let me see if I have Type founders on here. No, I don't. Okay. The Type founders. So the Type founders, if you don't know, it's almost like an investment company, to be honest. It's a company that basically purchases, invests in foundries that are independent and are maybe no longer going to be holding onto their fonts themselves. So a few weeks ago, we talked about Black Foundry. Black Foundry was an amazing type foundry that decided to dissolve. They sold the rights and all of the fonts to the Type founders. Some of that's on here. Some of this is still being, actively being made. So that's what the company is. These are the foundries that they have. Great foundries. There's been so many times where I scroll to the bottom of someone's a foundry's page that I like, and I get to the bottom, and then it says the Type founders. And I was like, what the heck is this? Why is this company everywhere? That's why. Because they basically invested in / acquired the rights to all of these. And I'm not sure exactly how the business portion of it breaks down, but the team is pretty large. And Sam Berlow right here, brother to David Berlow, famous type designer, he's been involved in the type industry for over 3 decades. So I think that most of these typefaces are in good hands, compared to some of the other acquisitions that we've seen, in the last few years and the last decade or whatever. What they've done now, though, is released this app called Typographer. And unfortunately, it's only available for Mac right now. I was really hoping that we could test this out. What it is, it's very similar to Adobe fonts. So if I pull up Adobe fonts real quick, it's very similar to Adobe fonts, how you can sync your fonts to your computer. It's very similar to Fontoscope. Let me open that real quick. Nope, that's FontBase. They're the competing apps, I think, just so we can kind of get a baseline for what this is. I would say that it's competing with Adobe a little bit, Adobe subscription, whereas Typographer, I'll get into it in a second. I think they're kind of competing with Adobe fonts. I think they're kind of competing with Fontoscope here with Paratype. Is Phonoscope Paratype? Yeah, Paratype. I think they're, I'm not sure. It's kind of its own beast, if we're being honest. So let me, shoot, I need to log in real quick. I apologize. Let me pop this into a different monitor so you can't see my login. But this is going to be using all of those typefaces from, shoot, I apologize. I do have to log in here. I'm not sure what's better to look at. I'll just leave you on this screen, I guess. This is going to be using all of the typefaces from the foundries that we just talked about, which equates to, I think they're listing it at like 10,000 fonts or something like that. It's pretty big. I would have done this link prior to this, but it expires after 15 minutes. So you kind of got to do it and then log in right then. But we're getting a little bit of a preview of it here. I'll be logged in 2 seconds and we will get this going. Okay, so like I said, I can't show you the actual app, but what I can show you is all of the typefaces that are on here, because I think that that's probably what's going to be most useful. If you can't get a good typeface, there's no reason for this to exist, right? So it's pretty similar. If you've been on MyFonts, if you've been on Adobe, if you've been on any of these things, what they're going to do, they're going to charge you $9 a month, and you're going to be able to have access to all of these typefaces for personal use. So you can use these for personal use. Let's go ahead and, goodness, I have too many things open now. Let's go ahead and look at the pricing real quick and we can see what's going on. So it's similar to Adobe in the sense that you can sync the fonts to your computer immediately. You get 10,000 fonts. I'm on a 7-day trial right now. That's why I have access to this right now. But we don't actually have access to the application because it's only on Mac right now. I'm going to get to like the exclusive information that I have about it coming in Windows and stuff like that. But yeah, so students can get this for free, but you just have to contact them to do it. Monthly, $9, annually, $90. What you get access to is being able to prototype with this and stuff like that. And then if you look down here at the bottom, I'm not sure how else is going to show up on screen. Let me see how I can zoom in on this very much. It says Typographer covers prototyping and personal web use up to 15,000 page views per month. I think that would cover, most websites. I don't know who's really getting 15,000 views a month. If you're like an independent web page, maybe if you are, how you have like a large publication with a lot of subscribers or something like that, or if you're a major social media platform, but I don't think you're going to be looking at this if that's the case. So I reached out to them. Let's go ahead and kind of scroll through this a little bit. I reached out to them and I asked them what the deal was with this. I'm trying to think of what the best way to look at this is. Let's go ahead and look at the app here. We can look at the selections, and then I'll talk to you about the questions that I asked them and the answers that they gave me. So if you're familiar with any marketplace, this is going to look real familiar. The things that are cool, though, is that you can go directly to foundries. So you can explore the foundries that they have in their stable, which, as we already saw, are very impressive type foundries. You can also do that from the side here on the fonts portion. So you could go over to foundries over here on the left. Very nice. You can sort by language. You can sort by format. This is one that's pretty useful, I think. So you can look at like color fonts or you can look for variable fonts. A lot of times, like if I really need a brand font, I'm probably going to try to find a variable font just because there's so much more, not necessarily future proofing, but if you ever want to animate it and you don't have a variable font, it does kind of limit the animation that you can do with it. The kinetic typography that you can get out of static typefaces is just different. There are definitely benefits to static typefaces, but if you wanted to filter by variable, that's where it is. Yeah, so you've got all of your typical, vibe-based things here, but I think they're probably going to be just a little bit better since it is coming from a little bit more of a premium selection of typefaces, because you got serif here, but then you can actually go into Didoni, so like your modern rationalist typefaces. You can go into humanist and see like actual humanist ones. Old school, you're going to get that low X height. Well, Fields looks like has a pretty high one there, but you see like Albion here has a low X height. It's got the diamond tittles on the eyes. Transitional, get your, get your Caslon and stuff like that in here. Anyway, let me go ahead and switch to the face cam and I'll read you what their email response was, because I think you're probably getting an idea of what this is, but like, why does it exist, right? Because for $9 a month, what are you going to get? You're going to get access to these typefaces, but you still have to purchase them. Yeah, let's look at the email, because I replied to him. I have it up on my notes here. I'll go ahead and put the notes in front of me so it looks like I'm kind of looking at you guys. I'll read you the email exactly how I sent it to them, and then I'll kind of skim through their response because theirs was a little more verbose than mine. Request for comment. So I sent this to Typographer, the Type founders, and I asked them, I was hoping to check out the new app to report about it this Sunday for Typography News, but it appears to be Mac OS only. Why was the decision made to only support Mac OS? I'll just do these one at a time because I sent all the questions at once, but they answered them individually. So they said, for the launch, we chose to do a Mac first client so we could keep the surface area small, nail install and sync quality, and move quickly through the early feedback loop with the platform most of our initial testers use. Windows is on our roadmap. We're still finalizing priority and timing. Question of when, not if. That's a good sign for any Windows users. If helpful, we're happy to set you up with a guided demo so you can see the full experience before the stream. I went ahead and said, no, I don't need to see the guided demo. I think everybody's probably going to get the idea of what this is if they've ever used any other, font management software. And for me, I want to actually have hands-on. I don't want to just have like a video of someone else doing it. But yeah, so the Windows one is coming. And then down at the bottom of the email, this is from Aaron. He noted, if your audience skews Windows, we can notify you the moment the build is ready and share an early access link. So that's very cool. I appreciate that. We will be able to get like an early access look at the Type founders, or the Typographer app by the Type founders. Next, I asked them, lastly, other foundries offer their trials for free. Paratype even has a very similar app called Fontoscope that gives you access to their library of 6,000 typefaces for free prototyping. Adobe Fonts, while typically bundled with Creative Cloud, is available for about $5 a month with an in-copy subscription. That's my secret to getting Adobe Fonts really cheap. What makes Typographer worth $9 a month to prototype or use on personal projects? They said, on pricing and free trials, we genuinely applaud. Let me go ahead and let's try and do something here. Can I do screen cap? Do I still have my face? Hey, there's me. We'll kind of do a old school Curtis and the email at the same time. So I'm reading this right here. I'm not sure. Yeah, you're probably not really going to be able to see this. There we go. It's kind of big. Okay, so these are their responses. On pricing and free trials, we genuinely applaud foundries, platforms, and offer completely free prototyping tools. Those are great for the ecosystem, and we don't see Typographer as a perfect substitute for them. Because yeah, a lot of foundries right now, like you can get either pared down versions of the trial of the typefaces with a trial, or you can get like the entire full font. So Aaron here is saying that like, yeah, that's not a replacement for them. Our angle is a little different. Typographer includes light real-world commercial web use. So that's kind of cool. So prototypes can actually ship without relicensing friction. On the annual plan, there's also $100 credit towards any font purchase, which helps offset the cost if or when a project graduates. So that's cool too, because you can imagine if you spend $90 on the annual plan, like if you pay $90 to have access to this, you're going to get $100 at least that first year. I'm not sure if they give that to you every single year. Maybe they do. And in that case, if you're purchasing a typeface, this gives you a great prototyping and then just basically gives you an extra $10 because $90 versus $100 credit. I'll read the rest of their response and then I'll go ahead and give my commentary on it. Why charge at all? A modest subscription helps subsidize ongoing development, not just of the app, but new font development and continued investment in discovery and delivery so people can actually find and use the right fonts with less friction. The launch is offering our first foray, not the final word. We'll evolve the product with feedback, and we're intentionally building towards more ways to add value over time. Okay, let me turn off this. Let me turn off that. Here's my main takeaway from this. Apps cost money to develop, ecosystems, they cost money to develop. I get it. I understand why it costs money to build this. And the $100 credit really does offset that cost if you were doing the annual thing. My problem would be the light commercial web use really doesn't have much value for me, because I still think that for half the price you can get access to Adobe fonts, which has like, I don't know, 5 times more typefaces than or fonts than this from the type founders. And the secret thing is a lot of the typefaces from the type founders are also available on Adobe fonts. So if you want to like Proxima Nova or something like that, you can go get that on Adobe. If you want, I don't know, they just have a huge selection. I mean, as much as I dislike Adobe's business model, as much as everybody kind of feels like Monopoly is like bullies its creatives, the one thing they do really well is the Adobe fonts, the type subscription, because like I said, I pay for InCopy and it gives me access to Adobe fonts. Maybe someday I could definitely see them getting rid of this, but right now I get access to Adobe fonts for $4.50 a month. That's insane because the license covers everything. I can literally use it for anything I want. Yeah, I mean, any commercial work that I want, any broadcast that I want to do, I don't have to worry about any of the weird licensing that we talk about every week. So when you're comparing the two, it's really hard to see the value here. But I do think that it is good that he is telling me like, this is the first foray into this and it's not the final word. So I applaud that they're doing something that gives people access to this. I do think that these apps are kind of cool, but do I want a different app from every foundry, from every marketplace? No, I don't. I have them all on my computer because I report typography news, but do I think that you want to have Adobe fonts, FontBase, have the Typographer, have Fontoscope, have, you know, whatever other foundry, if this becomes a trend, everyone just has their own app that they want to shove on your computer. It's going to be really cool to test out the fonts. If that's the thing, you know, open it up, you know, don't let it run in the background all the time, but just open it up, test out the typeface. You know, they can control the trials a little bit more. I get it. That's cool. But I don't know. It's kind of like the streaming thing, right? I think everybody saw like Adobe fonts, what they're doing, and now everybody's going to try and get on that action, which I don't think is good for us. But time will tell. I try not to be too pessimistic about it. Hopefully I presented this in an objective way, showing you like what this is. I know you probably don't have a good idea of how the app works yet. Neither do I. But if you're on Mac, you can test it out free for 7 days. You don't have to put in a subscription or you don't have to put in a credit card. And you can get this free for 7 days. You don't have to put in a credit card. You don't. And it gives you access to it. You can go and look through all the typefaces. You will download the app so that you can use them on your PC, and you'll be able to see like, do they work in Figma? Do they work in Affinity? Do they work in Adobe? Do they work wherever you need them to work? Because that's going to be the most important thing. It doesn't matter how good the fonts are. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But in my experience, these things work pretty well. Adobe has the most, but it's surprisingly the buggiest, but it's never something that you can't just like close the app and get it to work afterwards. So that's that. Like I said, it's a preview. We don't know a ton about it yet, but you know, you can try it out for yourself for free for a week. And if you do, go ahead and let me know how it worked out for you, because I'd be interested in hearing about that. Next up, we have another thing that I need to put my headphones on for. Give me 2 seconds. This is Pizza Hut they have new branding. So new branding from Pizza Hut comes with a new typeface. That's the main reason we're going to talk about this, because they have Domino Sans and it's replacing their old custom typefaces. So I want to kind of take a quick look back at those, look at the new one. Let's go ahead and check this out.
Domino. I got it, bro. That's it.
Okay. I don't know how I feel about the jingle. They're really pushing that jingle, talking about how Shabuzi made this new jingle for them. I can't imagine that catching on too much. But here is a preview of the typeface. We don't actually have it. We don't actually have a lot going on with this yet in terms of like access to it, in terms of looking at it. It's not live on the website yet. It's not. None of this stuff is actually in production, I guess. You know, they're rolling it out. They're announcing this, and then they're going to roll it out. Probably a smart move, considering all the backlash that a lot of these places have been getting when they do their rebrands. You know, show it off right now, and then if everybody loses their freaking minds, you know, you didn't waste a bunch of money changing all the stores and the website and things like that. I don't think that this is going to get backlash. This is a pretty nice rebrand. The thing they talked about, the reason why I'm stuck on this screen right now, is because they talked about this geometric sans serif being bolder, being like doughier, and having all these perfect circles. As we all know, typefaces really don't have perfect circles because perfect geometrical forms don't look good to human eyes. And if you actually zoomed in on these, some of them you can see where it's actually circles overlapping other circles. So it's not actually perfect, but I mean, you can look at it, it's pretty close. But that looks cool. I'm gonna go ahead and go over to the press release because I think that gives the, you know, the most direct sort of direct source for this, I guess you'd say. So yeah, they're really talking about this this jingle. I think it is not great. It doesn't roll off the tongue. Dominoes. But the colors look nice. I think that the typeface looks nice, and we can get a closer look. Let me see. This was working earlier. Oh, here we go. We can get a closer look at the branding right here. So the typography, you know, this trendy sort of wave liquefy thing has been going on for a while. So I do think that's not necessarily like the most groundbreaking thing. It's going to look a little bit dated. The right side of the M isn't a circle, Daryl says. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you're right. Even in the actual circle isn't really a circle. Yeah, so they're kind of tricking us there. They're putting these circular forms on there, but yeah, you can see the end too. The ends, you know, those are probably the same shoulder on there. Yeah, so they put the circular shapes on there, those ellipses type shapes, ellipsis type shapes, but they're not really perfect circles, like any typeface. But I do think it's cool that they're, you know, they're kind of showcasing all of it. You can see the overhang, the overshoot on the baselines and stuff like that. But it looks nice. The nice big apostrophe there. But the branding, it does look good. I really like, this isn't typography related, but I really like the Domino's pizza boxes, sticking them side by side. That's pretty cool, pretty clever. And then, you know, the type just looks good pretty much everywhere. I don't think that the type is like the biggest thing for this time. I think they're going much more graphical and really playing into the actual Domino design. But let's look at, so this is Domino Sans, and you know, that's about the biggest look that we get at it is on this the screenshot here, and then on these previews here. I do have, though, some of the older ones, and Monotype actually did like a whole case study on this, because Monotype, see, if you look here, their old branding was way more typography driven. I don't want to get too deep into this. I don't know how much I want to look at this. I was trying to look at just that first picture there. But yeah, so the old branding was done by Monotype Studio. You can see a little bit of it here. And it was good for the time. Those layering typefaces. So here is Terrence. What is his name? Terrence. Oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. This guy right here. Terrence now is the executive creative type director at Monotype Studio. He was involved with creating this typeface. And it was this layering, stacking typeface that were really popular, you know, in 2010 to 2015, I guess. These were really popular. I think that they've kind of died out a little bit. Maybe with color fonts and stuff like that, it's not quite as necessarily. But for printing on the boxes and stuff like that, it looked really good at the time. Let me see if I can get, yeah, I guess that's what I've got for you. Yeah, so the previous typefaces were called 1 dot and 2 dots, which I think was pretty cool. So this was the 1 dot that was actually just a display typeface that was created for the boxes and things like that. But then it expanded into a sans serif that was 1 dot, and then the serif typeface that was called 2 dots. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'm not sure who did the new Domino sans, this one here. It looks like they've completely abandoned the serif, which is probably a decent choice for Domino's. Completely abandoned the serif, gone much more geometric, going with those big bold circles, circular shapes, and they've gone away from this here. But if there's ever, if we can ever get our hands on this typeface, or if there's a new case study, or if somebody announces who actually did this redesign, I'll talk about it again, because I think it's a good sign that everybody continues to do these in-house typography, you know, have their own custom typefaces. Something that's not necessarily a good announcement for Squarespace users, I know, smooth transition here, Curtis, is all of the retired typefaces that they've announced on here. Let's see if I can get my face on here. I think we can throw my face on here for some of these boring ones. But yeah, here's a giant list of typefaces that are not going to be, let's see if we can get this bigger. They're not going to be available for Squarespace users anymore. I saw somebody complaining about this on Reddit. You know, they were saying like, oh, my typeface is going to be removed. It was a font one. Not sure which one it was. I think it was font Air. I'm not sure. It was one of these font ones, because people were talking about the typefaces from a certain foundry not being available anymore. I looked through this list, and the first thing I noticed that a lot of these look like the typefaces that are usually announced when Adobe gets an expansion from Monotype, when Figma starts partnering with Monotype, when Canva starts partnering with Monotype. And yeah, you can clearly see there's a ton of font typefaces on here, but Franklin is owned by Monotype, Gil Sans is owned by Monotype, ITC is owned by Monotype, Linotype is owned by Monotype. Clearly Monotype is owned by Monotype. You get the idea. I did reach out to Squarespace to kind of find out why they're getting rid of these. They didn't reply, which, you know, is kind of expected at this point. We're sitting here with 735 subscribers, which I love, but I understand they're not going to see a ton of value in. But yeah, you can't even get wingdings on here anymore. So making a mess. So that's the objective thing that's going on right now. These are being removed. Let me speculate for just a second here. I don't know exactly why this is happening, but I do know that 1 year ago, in October of 2024, they were acquired by private equity. So Squarespace used to be a publicly traded company. They were on the NASDAQ, or not, they were on the New York Stock Exchange for, I guess, 4 years. I think they went public during COVID, during 2020. They did direct filing, I'm pretty sure, and they went public. And then they got acquired for like, I don't know, $7 billion or something crazy like that in 2024. And then it went through 1 year ago. So I don't know that this is the reason why that they're, I don't know that private equity necessarily has anything to do with this. I did ask them, like, did Monotype like raise the prices? Do you guys just not see value in this anymore? What do you like? How would you compare this to all of your competitors? Because literally all their competitors are using Monotype library. They've all partnered with Monotype. I think even Wix has partnered with Monotype. Don't quote me on that. But we've announced it on this channel, you know, every time that there's some new expansion or partnership with Monotype, it's all of these typefaces. So the fact that we're seeing Squarespace completely move away from this, I don't know what that indicates yet, but I do feel like it's significant enough to talk about. Time will tell what that actually means. Let's get into some more events. I have a couple of events for you to talk about here. One from, let's get my face off the screen. This is why I stopped putting my face on the screen, because I would forget that it was on there. Fonts and AI. This is an upcoming event, October 23rd and 24th, being put on by I Love Typography. Let's see if we can zoom in how much it'll break the screen. Nice. Okay, so Fonts and AI, this is coming on October 23rd, 24th. Here are the program curators, probably recognize some of those names. And here's the actual program. So it's just going to take place over 2 days, about 9 hours each day, or 7 hours, 9 days? No, 7 hours each day. And I'm not going to linger on this for too long because I don't know how many people are going to be interested in this when they see the price tag, because the price tag is 125 pounds, which in dollars, that's like $160 or something like that for a 2 day, you know, for 14 hours. When they did their last conference, it was like $600 or something like that to attend. It was like a font business one. They ended up publishing 2 of those. I think there was like 12 presentations. And then they published 2 of them onto YouTube. So, I don't know. We'll see what they end up making live. This isn't one that I'm necessarily going to, attend, just because what I saw from the last one doesn't seem like the value's there, but that's completely subjective. What I do think this is going to be interesting is it's going to be kind of like a first look at how the type industry is looking at AI. Because the one thing that the last conference did was it really gave insights into how the foundries and type designers were thinking about licensing, thinking about pricing and stuff like that. I talked a little bit about that whenever some of those videos went live. So I think it will be interesting to see if any insights come out of this, but for me, the value is not necessarily there. Daryl says, most companies rebrand themselves when they're struggling. Interesting. But after years of category-defining growth, this refresh is about continuing to push to be the best version of ourselves. They call it crave mark. They're calling this is a quote from the Domino's thing. Oh yeah, I see it up there, the new crave mark. Oh, okay, so they're calling this whole branding crave mark. Interesting. I didn't notice that they were calling it that. Yeah, I don't think that, oh yeah, I see it right here, duh. I don't think that Domino's necessarily struggling. I think that they're pretty successful. But yeah, I think that the one thing I did want to point out that I didn't do a good job of pointing out was that the old Domino's, that stacking, layering typeface thing that they were doing, it does look pretty dated right now. So yeah, I can see why they're doing this, even if the branding isn't necessarily failing them, just because at a certain point, typography looks dated, branding aesthetics look dated. I really like the new branding. What do you think about it? Do you think that it looks good? Do you think that it's a good move? The other event that I wanted to talk about are actually free ones. So these are coming up. This is going to be, this might be a better way to do it. Type at Cooper, so Cooper Union, they have two different events coming up. One is Type Tourist City Signs. This is the one I'm really excited for. Looks good to Daryl. 2 thumbs up then. One from you, one from me. Type Tourist City Signs with David Quay. Says Type Tourist explores the rich heritage of urban and vernacular signs and lettering in cities and towns. Like I said, this is free. These are super low, barrier to entry with these types of events. They do live stream them on YouTube, so I have these linked in the description, and you can already add it to like your watch later and stuff like that. So this one comes out in 2 weeks, live in 14 days, it says. Gonna have a little bit of competition, I guess. Live in 14 days. And then the other one that they have coming up, let me see if I can get this on here. Oh gosh, dang it. I have my face on there. We're going to leave it on the screen cap. I'm done switching to my face. This is the Type Tourist that's coming up. You can see that it's going to be available it's coming up in 14 days. So Type Tourist is coming up. And then the other event that they have coming up is Small Performances. And it's about Baskerville, the creation of Baskerville. Oh, this is pretty slow. See if I can get a direct. Oh, that's all of the events. That's interesting. I've never seen that before. I must have clicked on the wrong thing. So this one here is going to be from Caroline. I don't know how to say her last name, so I'm not going to try. But this one looks like it's going to be pretty interesting as well. November 17th. So both of these are on YouTube already. You can add them to your watch later. I've linked both of them in the description. And this one is Small Performances, the making of Baskerville's typeface. I'll go ahead and read this because I think that maybe this one will be interesting to you guys. I think it's going to be interesting. It says, the Baskerville typeface is familiar to billions of readers and users of standard computer software across the world. However, the story behind its creation by John Baskerville, 1700s, is much less widely known. This is in spite of the fact that he was England's foremost printer, and what he called his small performances in type design went forth to astonish all librarians in Europe. So I think this sounds pretty cool. I always am interested in learning more about type history. I know I never actually presented my book review of Paul Renner, the Paul Renner book, but I found that really interesting, learning the history of that. Maybe I'll talk about that someday, or maybe I'll talk about him or the creation of Futura. But I'm pretty interested in this, learning about Baskerville. It seems good to me. So those are the two that are coming up from Type at Cooper. They are linked in the description, like I said, but it's just the Cooper Union's YouTube page. And they have a lot of old good talks on there. But these are going to be live, so they'll come up and you can interact and you can actually ask questions and stuff like that at the end as well. So it's pretty cool when they do these presentations. Let's get on to the new releases. My favorite part of the week. I'm not sure what you guys like the most, but all I want to look at all week are new releases. And this first one is coming from Rosetta Type. And I think one of the best things about Rosetta Type is that I really think that they've nailed the type specimen on their website. I would love to see a few more fonts and use type of specimens on here. But in terms of like showing what the typeface can do, so you can test it out right here. Whoa, we got the caps lock on. You can test it out right here. This one's got two axes. It's going to be a variable font. You've got the slant and the weight for the variable. And this is going to be similar to Frutiger, I think. Let me double check here. I have it up here. Oh my goodness. Frutiger. Okay, we're going to look at Frutiger in just 1 second. So this is going to be pretty similar to Frutiger, but like a new version of it from Rosetta Type. They've got 12 different static weights, and then it's variable, so you've got all the styles in one, which is always nice to see. Love to see that, especially from a new typeface. I can handle it with old ones, but with the new ones, if it's a workhorse like this, you really want to see variable. And like I said, they do a really great job with this website. You can get the free trials. That's what I'm going to look at here in a second. But then you can also purchase them directly, and the typeface the license is excellent as well. So I know a lot of times I'm complaining about the license. We'll look at this one in a second because it's actually very good. vertically aligned terminals, and open apertures. So that's going to be a little bit more legible. Obviously, this super bold weight isn't going to be like that, but alternate numerals. That's nice for legibility as well. So you can differentiate the ones from the L's from the capital I's, the O's from the zeros. Those are the types of things that I would look for in like a workhorse typeface. They're calling this unit-width, which at first I got kind of excited for until I realized that it's not my personal definition of unit-width. But I think this unit-width definition is still being kind of figured out. What they're calling unit-width is that the variable font doesn't actually change the spacing. So the slanted version, the italics, are going to be exactly the same space as the upright version. So if that would come in use for, you know, UI, if you had a button that you wanted to scroll over and it was going to switch, I don't know why it would, but if it was going to switch from upright to slanted, that would be useful. If you were going to typeset something and then you needed to make something italic, it would be nice to know that your whole spread wasn't going to get messed up by, you know, italicizing one thing. Looks like they have some Greek cursive alternatives. I don't know Greek, so that doesn't really apply to me. This is something I wanted to look at. The original Frutiger comes with the square dots on the eyes and punctuation and stuff like that. This one has stylistic sets. It by default comes with the rounded ones, but you can switch it to the classic square ones, which is nice. There's one little specimen, I guess. They stuck it on the side of an airplane. But yeah, so this is the typical stuff that we would expect to see, you know, where you can test it out. They're showing some of the features and stuff. Gonna scroll through this. You can see it at text size, body copy size. There's no, you know, dark spaces. It's got a nice color, nice texture to it. And then this is the part that I thought was nice. Designed by Nick Job. This part right here is what I really appreciated. Was a lot of times I look at tons and tons of fonts, typefaces to see the specimens, try to see the features, try to see what's different about them. And it is very difficult sometimes because, you know, once a typeface is finished, I think a lot of these foundries don't have time to like mess around with doing this part. I'm going to try and make this big. I think it might break the website, but I'm going to try it. Oh yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay. So we're at about 200% right now, but I think that fills the screen a little bit better. So this here, I've seen things like this on other ones, but they've got every single one of them. So you can see the A's go from 1-story to 2-story. The G's can go from 2-story to 3. You can get the, you know, the legibility stuff in the I's. I'm not going to look at every single one of these, but you get the idea. They're showing you all of the different features right on the web page, so you don't have to kind of like hope that it works out for you. You can really see. They've got the slashed zeros. They've got the dotted zeros. I love a dotted zero. I don't know why. I guess just because it's different. Maybe because old computers used to use dotted zeros sometimes. I don't know. Looks like they got a really nice fraction. You know, they've got 2 different fraction systems set up here. That's kind of cool. You really don't see these fractions like this too often. I don't know what a nut fraction is. Is a nut fraction? Is that short for something? I've never heard that before. But yeah, so you can see they've got Cyrillic, they've got Greek, they've got all this good stuff. Let's go ahead and look at this in Affinity real quick. This is Aeropa variable. And I'm going to have to speed up because, like I said, I have a ton of stuff to talk about, but I did cut out a ton of the fat this week. So you can see we've seen this before, but just to showcase that it actually does work in Affinity, because sometimes, you know, things work on the web and then they don't work in your app. They did remove some critical characters. So one of the standout things, let's go ahead and switch over to Frutiger. One of the standout things that'll help you notice Frutiger, let's get the base version of it. Oh no, it's not Frutiger. I'm thinking of Avenir. So Adrian Frutiger also created Avenir, which I don't think I have a version of on my PC. Let me check. Improvising here. No, I don't have one installed. Shoot. Okay, let me go back to this real quick and we'll go up to the top. Avenir has that typical Q on it. I'm sure everyone's going to recognize this when we get to it. So Avenir has a Q that looks like that. And when I first saw this, I was like, oh, is this like an Avenir, you know, inspired thing? close, but no cigar. It's Adrian Frutiger, who also created Avenir, but it is Frutiger. So if we look at these two side by side, you can really see they're pretty similar, but not exactly the same. So on top is Aeropa, on bottom is Frutiger, and I just think it's good to look at the two side by side so you can kind of really see what you're getting into. Frutiger, is a staple in design, but Aeropa, it's got its own things going on. It's not a one-to-one copy. If we look at these terminals here, the little notches inside of the B and the U there, you can see these are not necessarily like a full wedge, but it's kind of a little more sharp there. And then they're also not doing the circular geometric counters inside of these. They don't have like this oval inside. They're cutting it off at the stem there. So you can see that if you squinted your eyes, at text size, maybe these would seem really similar, but when you get into looking at the details up close, you can see this isn't like a one-to-one. They've got the slanted T there, and then you look at it on Aeropa, and you can see that it's got a lot of unique details. You do get a lot of the open type features and stuff on here, so I already showed you them before, so I'm not going to show you a ton, but if we switch to the square dots on here, so you can at least see those, then it starts to look a little bit more like Frutiger, and you might even be able to switch out and get the alternate, might be able to get like an alternate T or something like that. But Aeropa, what do I think this is good for? I think this is good for like an alternative to Frutiger, and I also think that they have an incredible license. So this says that it's bundled. Okay, so I was reading my own notes. So it's bundled by company size, which I think is nice. So it says, I like to do the whole family so we can see what it is. And typically I go to desktop and see like what the desktop price for like the full family is. That's kind of how I gauge what it's going to cost. 216 euros for this, workhorse typeface with tons of open type features, tons of language support, and it's just bundled by company size, so up to 3 employees. You're going to be able to use this on desktop, web, app. You just can't use it for like AI research or automated processing, stuff like that. But for the 3 main licenses that we typically see are desktop, web, and app, they bundled them all together for 216. We've seen desktop ones alone that are going to cost you 216. So I like that. I like when things are bundled. I don't like to necessarily worry about it. I wish that the page views were unlimited, but like I said earlier, a lot of people aren't hitting those page view numbers anyway, unless you are a huge company. So I think this is a nice alternative to Frutiger if you wanted to get out of, the Monotype Adobe ecosystem and get something a little more independent. Rosetta Type does post. They do publish on Adobe fonts. Let's see if I have a link to it. Maybe. I do have a link to it. Here it is. So they do publish on Adobe fonts, but Aeropa isn't on there yet. So it is possible that eventually this one will show up. Here we go. I don't know what I was doing there. So they do have some of their typefaces on here. Rosetta Type, I really like them. They've got a number of fonts, but this one's not on there yet. Maybe it will show up later. Because we do have one new release today that is actually already on Adobe fonts, which I think is pretty impressive. The next one we're going to talk about is the clickbait one from the thumbnail, and that is Blackpink. Jennie from Blackpink released a typeface, and I fully expected it to be just like super silly nonsense, but it's not. It's actually kind of surprisingly good. It's called Zen Serif. Let me go ahead and switch to Instagram, because I think, these Instagram posts typically are the most graphically pleasing to look at. So you can see it kind of in context here, how they're using it. It's mainly a Hangul typeface, so Korean Hangul, but it does have Latin as well. So that's the usage and stuff like that. Let's see if we can see it right here. So you can see it a little bit right here. You can see it kind of being used there, the Hangul being used there. Zen Serif. Yeah, I think she had an album come out that was called Zen, so I guess that's where that's coming from. But yeah, it looks pretty, or was that clever name related to No, you just said that, so that must be for this one. But yeah, so this is Jennie from Blackpink. You can get this for free. So this is a free download. This is linked in the description as well. There's just a few restrictions on it. I'm not entirely sure, what they are. It says that it's still their intellectual property. Obviously, it's provided for free. You just can't sell it, but you can use it for most things. You just can't use it in political context or to promote violence, things like that. So read the license. Obviously, that goes without saying when you purchase or download any typeface. But I wanted to showcase Wakame Fondue. Ridiculous name, but if you say it fast, it sounds like what can my font do? This isn't a new website by any means, but the reason I want to showcase this is because I dropped this typeface in there just so I could see what is this actually like? What's going on with this typeface? Who made it? Where did it come from? So I wanted to shout out Pixel Ambrocht, and shout out this website. This is a really cool tool. So right now I'm just dropping in that Zen Serif typeface that I downloaded, and it gives you all the information. So you can see Zen Serif regular. Look at this glyph count. This is insane. I'm going to try to zoom in as much as I can, but okay. Almost 12,000 characters. I cannot imagine. I'm aspirational. I would love to design a typeface. I really want to design a Scotch Roman. But if I had to design 12,000 characters, I cannot even, where would you even begin with something like that? I can't imagine the Chinese, Korean, Japanese type designers, all the work that must go into that. So one, that's insane. Two, it does have, 13 open type features. So that's kind of cool. I'm not sure how many of those apply to Latin. Those are probably mostly applying to the Hangul. But here's what I was really looking for when I dropped this in here was to see who actually designed it. And it is Leedotype. Because unfortunately, Odd Atelier and Jennie, they don't say who actually designed the typeface, because we know that she's not doing it, right? We don't have some singer, K-pop singer, rapper creating a typeface. It's not, entirely out of this world, but it's just incredibly unlikely. This is the website. I can't speak Korean and can't read Korean. So I tried to subscribe to a newsletter. I couldn't figure it out at all. This is their Instagram though. We can go to this and you can see Zen Serif on here. You can see them working with her and things like that. So this is Leedotype. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I didn't link them below or anything, but you can go seek them out if you want to see more from them. I think if you speak Korean or read or write Korean, this would probably be, this type foundry is probably going to be more useful to you. But let's look at this typeface because I was shocked at how good this actually looks. It's only one weight. So there's only one style. This is it right here. Let's see if we can make this bigger. It's only one style. There's not a ton of features, but there are a few cute little icons and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not super into K-pop. I think everybody is aware of Blackpink. It's kind of hard to escape the last 10 years or whatever. But I was surprised at how well this actually looks. And even at smaller sizes, I know you're not going to type this out for a whole magazine or something, but I thought, oh, it's probably just going to be a display typeface. But I think it looks surprisingly nice. I don't know what I would use this for, but, only being this one weight, it's going to have a real particular aesthetic. And I think that they did do a great job with their specimen showcasing how it could be used. But I was actually really shocked at how well this looks. If somebody speaks Korean, obviously this is going to be much more useful to them, because as you can see, if we go back to this, you can actually test out the typeface. You can see all the characters. Maybe, where is it at? It's got it all in language. Shoot, maybe they don't support Korean. Let me get out of this, pull up the glyphs. I know this isn't going to be huge, but you can see all of the Korean characters, glyphs loading up there. if you speak Korean, if you read and write Korean, this is going to be much more valuable to you. And maybe this doesn't look great in Korean. I have to assume that it probably does look all right, though, because I think this looks really good in for Latin. And I don't know, I was pleasantly surprised. A nice free typeface from a K-pop icon. Not what I expected to be reporting about this week, but like I said, a nice pleasant surprise. The next font that we're going to look at, though, the next type release, is coming out of Cast. And this is called, I think it's supposed to be pronounced Estrojuene, like the hormone. So another clever name for us, Daryl. But this is coming out of Cast, C-A-S-T. I think that stands for something, but it's also it's in Italian, so I don't necessarily know what it. I can't read Italian either, so I don't know what Cast stands for. But they have a lot of great typefaces, and this is a fun one. I do have the type tester for this one as well, so we'll look at that. But let me see. I think the Instagram announcement looks the best. This one was previewed. I think they really did a really nice job with these specimens as well. I know that one's scrolling on your screen probably way too fast to actually see, but these here are static, so we can look at these. I think they did, this isn't a typeface that I'm typically drawn to. Clearly it's a reverse contrast, so they've got the horizontal contrast on there rather than the vertical contrast that we're typically used to in fonts. So that's why it immediately just feels strange. But I'm digging this one a little bit. I don't know what I would ever use it for, but I do, as far as horizontal contrast typefaces go, reverse contrast typefaces, this is one of the better ones that I've seen. And what I think is really interesting about this is all of the features that it has. So unfortunately, this website, I don't think does an amazing job of showcasing them. It's got the thing where you can kind of click through them here. And that's what I was talking about a few minutes ago. With Rosetta Type, how they've really nailed it down, showcasing the features, because this is what you see 99% of the time. I guess you get a quick look at some of the features here at the bottom, but it's just not as cool as being able to click on and click off each individual one. I'm going to pull this up in Affinity because I think we'll be able to get the better look at it here. This is Estrojuene, and obviously this here at the bottom, it's not legible, it's not readable. I should say like it's moderately legible, but as far as being readable, out of the question. What I wanted to look at though was the swashes and things like that, because I like when people put in a little bit of effort to make these things just, have a little bit more fun to them. And I think swashes are one of the most fun things that a typeface can have. I'm not sure what that's from. Maybe it's from like the old Bookman typefaces or something like that. Let me see. Daryl is saying this one rotates the pen stroke, where Zen maintains a calligraphic 45-degree pen stroke. Varies the width of the stroke depending on vector of the stroke. Yeah, that. So if we were comparing this to Zen's nice and traditional. So that is, it really does make a big difference when you're looking at Zen. Like it feels, despite both being very calligraphic, it feels much more normal to like my brain. I guess if you were from a country or from a script, used to scripts that were like some Indic scripts I know are more horizontal like this. But yeah, this one feels so much stranger because it's flipping those. But yeah, I really like some of the stylistic alternatives and the swashes and stuff like that. And then I know you're not going to be able to see it very well on your screen, but they do give you positional alternatives too. So sometimes when you're working with scripts, it can be difficult to get these to work the right way. Sometimes, the app changes it when you don't want it to, and maybe you're getting the wrong S. So you can kind of play around with some of the features and stuff like that to get it exactly how you want it to be. The swashes were the main thing I wanted to point out. The symbols are the other one. This typeface has a lot of symbols. It has a lot of like sexual orientations. It has a lot of oh my gosh, I can't even think of a lot of horoscope. What are they called? The horoscope things. The signs, the star signs, has a lot of star signs on there, and it has some smileys and stuff like that. So I think this is the kind of type of font, type of typeface that would work with a very specific audience. You're gonna have that sort of funky horizontal stress, like Daryl's saying, where they're changing it completely. They're switching out the vertical stress. They're changing the way that the pen would be held. It just feels so much different from what we're used to for Latin calligraphy, that if you really wanted to make something that felt unique, or was a little bit counterculture, or a little bit, I don't know, anything that kind of was going against the tide, I think that this could be cool. And, it's got all these different icons and stuff too. So I do think they're kind of speaking to like a very particular group of people, and that's always nice. A lot of typefaces are entirely focused on, shoot, is this one not working? They're entirely focused on, let me try to think, quit switching screens, Curtis. They're entirely focused on trying to appeal to everybody. So we look at something like this is a workhorse, and we need workhorses. But it's nice to see a typeface or type designer just be like, hey, I'm going to make this for a very specific audience. I'm going to make it look really fun for them. I'm going to make these icons that I know they're going to want. And that's cool too. I love to see both sides of this. The last typeface that we're going to look at for new releases, and then I got a couple of like upcoming and updates as well. The last typeface that we're going to look at for new releases is coming from Typejockeys. See if I can get this up here. Typejockeys, and it is called Marie. I think it's Marie. Marie. I'm going to say Marie. So we started with a type, started with a workhorse. We're finishing with a workhorse. Oh, just before we move on here, Daryl says, looks a little more like very pressured brush stroke. Interesting. I'm not familiar with a lot of calligraphy and stuff like that, so maybe people who are more familiar with lettering would be more understanding of what you're talking about. I understand what you're talking about in terms of pen pressure, where it would be like squirting out more ink on the spaces where they're where they're pushing down harder. But I think you're right. Like you can see the midsection of these, everything between the X height and the baseline is very thin, and then everything above it and below it is very thick. It's interesting. But Marie here by Typejockeys, this has 16 weights, so we're getting back to like, the workhorse typefaces. We went from 2 of them, they just had 1 style each. This one has 16 weights. It is variable. The glyph count in the trial font is 582. I'm not sure if that's the full glyph count or not. I'm just going to let this scroll through. You can purchase it directly from the foundry. It's not available on Adobe fonts, but similar to Rosetta Type, Typejockeys does have some typefaces that are on Adobe fonts. So this could show up there at some point. This one here also has a very, very good license. And let's go ahead and check that out before we switch over. Probably getting an idea of what's going on here though. The one thing I noted was that the OpenType features don't seem super strong. Maybe some of these don't necessarily apply to everybody. Maybe they're not highlighting all of them. I think if you're going to show 4 of them, you should show all of them. But I like these little toggle switches like we talked about 2 seconds ago. And I'm assuming that these are the main ones, or maybe the only ones that they have. I'm assuming they have ligatures and stuff like that, but these seem to be, you're going to get tabular figures, which is nice. Arrows, maybe some people care about those. They're nice to have too. Fractions, always nice to have. And then superior, inferior. I mean, you can't have a workhorse typeface without those. They don't have any in-use pictures here yet. They, if you send them yours, then they will put them on their website. So that's kind of cool. But if we go to the buy section here, we're going to look at the trial fonts. But they're doing something very similar to what we just saw from Rosetta. You get it for yourself, I'm clicking myself. You just pick your company size. And they've only got 2 people on here. I guess you have to contact them if you're going to get this for a bigger company. Maybe that is kind of a downside. But for me, for a lot of independent people buying from independent foundries, I think that this will probably work out for you. But you get the variable typeface, everything we just saw, 480 euros, a little pricier than the other one, but maybe that's worth it for you. And you get to use this for everything. Use it for desktop, web, apps, one license. Let's go ahead and click on this and see what it says. I'm not going to read through all of this, but you can see right here, you can use this on, let me go ahead and scroll over. You can use this on desktop, print, websites, apps, games, social media, and digital. So that one license, everything. It's not like all these places that we see piecemealing everything. So the 480, I think since they're including everything all together, maybe that makes that a little bit easier to handle. I would much rather spend a little bit extra on a typeface that I never have to worry about relicensing or growing the license or anything like that, versus, paying a little less and then having to like fix the license and things like that. This is it right here. It's kind of, you see what you see is what you get. This is a variable typeface, but I don't have the variable version. When you download the trial, you only get the static typefaces, which is fine. But you can see it's nice. It's it's a sans serif. There's not a lot to it. I guess I could read you the description that they give, because I did make a note that it's a nice concise description. They're saying our new sans serif, reading it right here, our new sans serif family Marie is as versatile as it is unobtrusive. It blends effortlessly into any design, giving the layout room to breathe while delivering clear, timeless typography with a friendly wink. This family comes in 16 styles from thin to black, including italics, and features a Cyrillic character set. Okay, so I didn't know about the Cyrillic until now. But yeah, you can see the one thing that I wanted to, I'm so dumb. I wrote their thing right here because I wanted to read it, and then I went to their website to read it. The one thing that I did think was kind of neat is that this dot of the eye kind of pushes down into it. What was it? We think we saw like Antique Olive a few weeks ago, where they were doing that. It does that on all the weights, but this one here, when you get down to heavy, doesn't do it. But when you get down to black, then it kind of punches in, that tittle punches in on the stem of the eye there. I really like that. It's really playful. So, it's a workhorse. There's not a ton to see here. You'd have to check the features, see if it's got stuff you like. But the main reason that I thought that this was worth including was because it's becoming harder and harder to find foundries that are releasing typefaces with good licenses. It seems like they don't even want you to use the fonts. So this all-in-one font license, I love to see it. And the typeface looks very nice. I wish that it had a few more open type features, but maybe it has some that aren't necessarily listed here. So that is Marie from Typejockeys. Let's look at an upcoming typeface from Typetype. They did send this out in an email newsletter, but I'm just going to pull up the Instagram because I think it gives way more insights. And per usual, we're going to have to refresh this so that it's nice and crisp. It looks a little, Daryl's talking about typemates here, or not typemates, talking about Marie. Sorry guys, I forget to check my chat sometimes. And the J, yeah, that's the only noticeable feature I saw too. Yeah, so we could type the J in here real quick. Bump. Yeah, that's kind of cool, but yeah, I mean, it's not going to blow your mind. So this is an upcoming release from Typetype. It's not out yet. They teased this 3 days ago, but I think that it's worth looking at because I think that the explanation that they give here on these slides is kind of cool. I'm typically not one that's a fan of high contrast sans serifs, but this one kind of strikes my fancy a little bit. So you get a quick look at it here. TT Quaris. One thing I wanted to point out here, which I don't know if this was intentional or not. I didn't know what this meant. I was like, I wonder how to, I don't even know if I'm saying it right. But if you translate, I'm going to say Quaris, it's probably wrong. If you translate this from Latin, it says you are looking for. So maybe that was intentional. And it seems kind of cool. If it is, if it's not, then, accidental Easter egg. So there's the typeface right here. You can clearly see this is a reverse, or not reverse. This is the high contrast sans serif. And if we start looking at it, I won't read every single word that's on here, but I'll point out the things that I think are cool. And then I think this is linked in the description as well. Yeah, this is linked in the description as well. So this said they started doing this in 2023, and it began with an open-ended brief, like high contrast sans. So they looked at 51 different typefaces, which I think is a great start, because then you can differentiate, take the pieces you like, get rid of the pieces you don't, and really understand what other people have done. I'm not a type designer. Daryl, I know you've done some type design, but I'm not a type designer, but that's always my process when I'm doing branding and stuff like that. I'll go and research everything else that's in that, even in that entire like hemisphere, in that entire universe of what I'm designing, and see what's out there so I can see what's been done before and do something different, or, you know, take inspiration from the parts that I do like. So they're exploring this, as you can see. But I like that they're pointing out a lot of these little details even before the typeface is released. And I don't know why, I'm a sucker for these diamond-shaped dots. They're calling it dots. I typically call it tittles, just because it's more fun. But these diamond-shaped tittles on the I's and J's, I don't know, there's something fun about those. I do like if a typeface gives me the open type feature to swap these out for the circles, or even squares. But I think on a high contrast sans serif, they look really nice. They make it a little bit classier, because these, if you're going to have contrast in your sans serif like this, you're going to kind of make it look like a modern, basically the equivalent of like a modern serif, but in sans. Then I think that the diamonds do make it look a little bit classier. So this is the preview for it. There's not a ton to showcase. I like the sharp elements. I like the diamonds. I'm typically not a fan of these, but this one actually does look pretty nice, and it's going to be variable. So love to see that as well. The italic looks nice. Everything. I think the heavier weight here particularly looks nice, because it's not super, super high contrast. Like if you were looking at like Dido or Bodoni or something like that, you get those hairline contrasts on like the tops and bottoms of the O's when you get to those heavier weights. This looks like it could probably work for text at smaller sizes and stuff like that too. The last thing that I'm really excited about this one is some of these, some of the symbols and stuff that they've included here, because I'm seeing a little bit of Gothic like tracery. You get some of these like these fleurs and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see what symbols end up coming with this, seeing what kind of ligatures and stuff coming with it, because we see some of them here. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting typeface that's a different tone from a lot of what we typically see, especially from sans serifs. I mean, this is complete contradiction to what we've looked at today for our sans serif workhorses. So this is not out yet. I expect we'll talk about it next week or the week after when they actually do release it. It's coming from Typetype. It's going to be a variable font. They've got two different variable fonts, though, one for italic and one for the Roman. So that'll be interesting. And I thought that the little translation there was interesting as well. This next one is from Monotype. It's not actually a new typeface, but it is an update. Monotype, she's releasing this through Counterforms. I'm just going to pop open a bunch of pages here. And you can see right here, Scotch Roman. Now you know why I'm talking about it. I love a Scotch Roman. And prior to this, there was only one font, one style, just this regular right here. What is new is this, the italic. So this came from Monotype. Let me go ahead and see. Here she is right here, Monotype. But it's being published through Counterforms. So you can see a lot of specimens here, a lot of examples of it. Looks very, very nice. And there is a trial for this. So what I thought was interesting, she said that this was inspired by a book written by, let me go back and look. I know I have it right there, but I want to read exactly what she said. I actually don't know how to pronounce this either. Eyja, maybe? It's a revival project from her time at Type Cooper in 2021, based on a serif typeface found in an 1852 edition of Visit to Iceland and the Scandinavian North by Eyja Pfeiffer. Maybe that's how you say it. I discovered the book through a book collector on Facebook Marketplace during COVID. So I is short for island in Old Icelandic. So I guess that's where that's coming from. But I went and looked up some of these books because I was like, well, I don't think that it's just like a random typeface. You know, back in the 1850s, this book was printed in 1852. You know, there was only so many typefaces out there, but I actually couldn't figure out what this was. It is clearly a Scotch Roman, but let's go ahead and look at it in Affinity because one fun thing, it's nice to just be able to mimic. I've got the screenshot here from it, and you can see, so this is the original, and then I've got just putting this, making a version of it here with Eyja from Monotype and Counterforms. You can see that it's pretty accurate, and when you stick this the centered, you space it out like the old title pages used to be, you put it in all caps. Obviously the little to the here isn't going to hold up as well because they would have had an optical size for that, whereas she's just got the one style, so that's going to be too flimsy, too delicate to actually work if you were really going to mimic this. But the aesthetic is still kind of there. And then, you know, it's very interesting how something can look very old. You know, it's clearly inspired from this 1852 book, the typeface that was used in this book, but then it looks pretty modern. You know, this doesn't feel dated. Might need to work a little bit on the spacing here. It doesn't feel dated when you look at it in like lowercase. And then even in body copy, we'll get to some body copy in a second. Even in body copy, let me go ahead and show you too. Even in body copy, this looks pretty good. It's a little bit narrow. You know, it's a little bit more narrow than what we would typically look at for body copy these days, but it's very nice. And it doesn't feel like something that's dated. I don't know. You don't see you don't see a ton of Scotch Romans used for body copy and stuff these days. You usually have a little bit more breathing room, but I think you could get away with this one. I really hope that this ends up getting developed a little bit further because I do think it looks very nice. But for now, we can look at the italic here because this is really what's new. Like I said, there's regular and there's italic, and clearly this is like a fully designed separate version. You know, she's not just slanting these. But you can see some of the contrast comes out of the T's here. So if we look at the regular, they've got those really nice cutouts on the top of the T there. But you lose those in the italic because I think they would probably just be hard to keep on there at that slanted size. It just really probably doesn't make sense. And you get those longer F's. Yeah, that's really nice. I love a good italic. The one thing I think is interesting about the italic is she's got all of these really long exaggerated tails on here. So maybe that wouldn't necessarily work for a lot of text, but for a small little things like this was just a quote from that book. Good letters of recommendation often fail to render the northern grangees polite towards strangers. I don't even know what that means, but it looks nice. And, you know, so you could probably make your type design look nice, or I mean, not your type design, your typography look nice too, using this. This does have a very nice license as well, coming from Counterforms. I previously wasn't actually familiar with Counterforms. I was following Monotype, but let's go ahead and you can get the trial fonts, but let's go ahead and go to purchase here. I have never seen purchasing power parity pricing on a website for fonts before. That's something I've heard talked about at like type conferences and stuff like that. You know, like one of those things where it's like, oh, it'd be nice if we could do this so people could afford these typefaces. You see this with like Netflix and Steam, like buy a video game and it's going to be, you know, a certain price in one region and a certain price in another. But I would be either in the United States or Brazil. So if I was in the United States, this cost me $60. If I was in Brazil, which I currently am, and I do have a Brazilian bank account, so I could get this for about $28. So I think that's really interesting. Hopefully people don't abuse this. I don't think you necessarily can because they're probably going to make you have the payment form from that country. That's how Steam and Netflix and some of these other places handle that. So they can make sure that like if you have a bank account in that country, then you know, they'll give you the pricing from that country. But I found that really interesting. And then let's go ahead and go back to the US one just because 60 is a nice round number. United States. So for $60, if you're in the US, You just pick your fonts, go ahead and get, oh, I guess it's going to be $60 for both of them. They give you a little bit of discount for that. But this is giving you everything just like before. So it says all our orders include desktop, web, and app fonts and permit unlimited usage across all mediums. So another great typeface license. Switch back to the face cam for a second here. I was really excited to see so many of these foundries, and granted, these are more independent foundries, so many of these foundries putting out great typeface licenses, because so often on here, you hear me just complaining about it, and I get sick of complaining about it, but I do think that it's worth noting whenever we're talking about a new release. The typeface license is incredibly important, because a font can look as beautiful as it wants, can be as useful as it wants, can have as many features and weights and styles and variable and color, and it can do everything in the world. But if the license sucks, it's just not worth using, because there are too many good typefaces out there to worry about that. So I'm glad that today we had a lot of good typefaces that do have good license. And I completely forgot to note that Estrojuene is actually available on Adobe fonts already. So that is actually linked in the description as well. So there's the link for Estrojuene by Cast. That one is available to purchase from the foundry, but I actually didn't need a trial license for that, because you can get that through Adobe fonts right now. So if you want to test that one out or just use it for a project, like I said, best value in the industry, I think, is that $5 a month subscription. And you can test out Estrojuene, with your Adobe subscription. Let me switch back to the screen, because I have one more thing I want to talk about. We got 5 minutes. That's beautiful. I'm always running short. Today we're right on time. Screen cap. And the last thing I wanted to look at was this playlist. This just got released. I think this actually got released about a month ago. Let me zoom in on this. This got released about a month ago, but it's from the Department of Typography and Graphic Design. And this is from the University of Reading. Last week or the week before, I think last week, we talked about St. Bride Library and how they have just incredible typography stuff on their YouTube channel, and they don't have enough subscribers at all. The Department of Typography and Graphic Design is another one. Look at this, 54 subscribers. This is the Typography Design Department at Reading, and they've just uploaded James Mosley's History of Letter Forms. This is basically his university course on typography, and it goes through, there's 21 videos on here, lectures of the late, great James Mosley. He did actually die like 2 months ago in August, passed away, so that's really unfortunate, but I really appreciate Reading keeping this alive and making it public. Oh, it looks like some of these were uploaded 11 days ago. So some of these were uploaded 11 days ago, some of these were uploaded a month ago, but the full playlist is on here. I do have it linked in the description. I 100% think that this is worth going and checking out. I don't have any watch time on this, but I do have it on my personal account. So I can attest that this is absolutely worth looking at. If you don't know James Mosley, go look him up on Wikipedia. He was the longtime British librarian, historian, wrote books, just all around type legend, lived to be 90 years old, it says here, but I mostly associate him with St. Bride's, but he was also a professor and lecturer at Reading. So his full lecture series on the history of letter forms is available on here. And that's what I think you should go watch after this. If you have time to go do something else on YouTube, go check that out, add it to your watch later list, save the playlist, because it's really is one of those things that if Reading didn't upload it, it would just be kind of lost to time. So I really appreciate them preserving this. They did it with the blessing of his estate and stuff like that. So they have his permission to do it. But really informative lecture series from someone that just spent their entire life wrapped up in typography. So there's no one better to do this. I think the lecture series, let me see, was from 2020. It was from the school year from 2020 to 2021. So it was that COVID period. And so that's probably why all of these got recorded. But, bad for the students at the time, but great for us because now we have this, we have this that we can watch forever until they, until YouTube goes away. But hopefully by then someone else has archived this. I'm going to get off here. Hopefully I'll bookmark for later. Yes, Daryl. I still have to finish watching it, but yeah, I think it's a really, really great resource. I'm happy that at least one other person is excited about it too. But it's good to see you again, Daryl. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for everybody else that stopped by and watched and lurked. I appreciate the lurkers as well. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Have a good week. Bye.